well, what I need to come here for you to make me do.
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
So in 1969, Brian Aldiss published a short story called Supertoys Last All Summer Long. Now, in this short story, which I meant to read, but I couldn't get around to, I was too busy scrolling on Twitter. Okay. I'm sorry, on X. So in the short story.
That sounds like you're doing drugs.
That
Molly.
I was on X.
Okay. Short story.
Yes, short story. And the setup is pretty similar. This world has few families. A few families are given a license to have a child. Much of the world lives in misery, but there's sort of there's an upper class. And while they're well off, there's a loneliness epidemic. What to do about it? Well, we meet our family, Monica, Henry, and David. And the story is largely told from David's point of view, and he's really struggling to connect with his mother. It's unclear why, but they buy a super toy named Teddy. Oh. Hopefully Teddy will bring them closer together. David writes these letters to his mother that show he's conflicted, but then also he likes Teddy, but he hates Teddy. It's interesting that in some ways, this is a pretty similar setup to the first, 45 minutes of the movie. But then eventually the husband comes home and he's like, great news. We've been given license to have a baby. And then we find out David is an android.
Okay. And that's where I felt we were going with that. That's interesting. Because you're right. They don't address that. Yes, we see it from Monica's perspective. So we don't ever check in with David to find out if he knows he's a robot.
And what is the verdict? He does know. But he only says I'm special.
Right, but he only knows how it feels to be that. So how could he miss being the other thing? It's not until he's shown the difference in the love and in the acceptance and placement in the family that he realizes he needs to care about the thing that he isn't. Mm-hmm. Because in the movie, he's so content. Gets put in the closet, loves it. Gets locked inside the smart house all day, loves it. Mm-hmm. All that's normal until their biological kid is treated not like that.
But it's not as if this makes him suddenly question himself. He's doing okay.
That's not true. That's when he gets stuck on needing to become real.
Yeah, but
Yes. I mean, he doesn't like it. He's doing his best to be real. That's why he eats the food. Whenever the kid starts eating the food, he's like, I'm just going to imitate this boy until I'm freaking real.
Yeah.
And then he makes one too many mistakes, and then he gets the ultimate punishment for the thing he feared was coming. I'm right.
Yeah. You know what?
What?
I had this thought.
Oh.
Okay. The child doesn't go to bed, and you think there's nothing worse. Nothing gives you the willies quite like this.
How are you going to go get a snack in the middle of the night? How are you going to fuck in the middle of the night? How are you going to crank a massive fart in the hallway in the middle of the night? Your kid's always awake!
Okay, but what if... Imagine this.
Okay.
Although, do the kids get sick? Do they?
Like a baby wets itself. I'm bored. I need a Tamagotchi more than I need. I say Tamagotchi every fucking episode at this point. But that, and that is what I thought. There's no challenge. It's Minecraft with all the netherite.
It's Minecraft with all the
enchanted tools. I don't want to start there. Right. I want to earn it.
Yes.
I need a robot that can get sick and die.
These mecha children, do they get sick? Do they, they're not sleeping in the middle of the night, but do they get up and come pretend they have a bad dream? There's all these things that kids do that these kids don't do. But I thought about this. What if they did? What if you powered, okay, David, power down, go to sleep mode. And now the robot does power down. Then what would happen is you'd be like.
He gets up all groggy and he's shit. I'm sorry.
Is the next morning you're like, well, I have shit to do. I'm going to wait to power back up my child. And then you're like, boy, it's been days since I've powered up my child. And then there's your friends are like,
yeah, but you're
pissed. A bad mom because you, he knows how much time has passed. Oh, okay. Yeah,
it's okay. And it takes him way longer to boot up certain programs. So he's just cursing the whole time. He's like, my politeness.
His RAM is struggling.
My RAM is, yeah.
You're like, David, you know where the bathroom is.
He doesn't.
He doesn't
bathroom.
Hold.
I don't understand. What's he holding?
Until he remembers.
But what's he doing? He's peeing?
No, you're like, David, take this washcloth to the bathroom. Here's your chore. You know how you get a kid to take a washcloth to the bathroom?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he forgot where the bathroom is and he doesn't know what washcloths are because he's still booting up.
Okay.
Your computer. Sometimes you got to give it some time.
That's what I was talking about.
Got to give it some time.
It's the exact point I was making, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Hearing it from a man's mouth sure doesn't make it make more
sense. Makes it hit a little different. So That was Brian Aldiss's short story. Stanley Kubrick
Why
likes
does Stanley Kubrick look just like Salah? I've been watching too much.
Yeah.
Damn it. I've been watching too much Indiana Jones. I didn't even know this episode wasn't on Indiana Jones at this point. Yeah, I saw AI and I'm like, oh!
Yeah, I want to buy this story, Brian.
I'm wearing a pirate shirt. You like it?
And Stanley Kubrick buys the short story from Brian Aldiss and then brings him aboard to try to expand this into a script treatment. Okay.
All right.
Now, doing a little research about Stanley Kubrick, who was a nightmare human being. And by the way, R.I.P. to Shelley Duvall, who just died last week.
Oh, yeah.
Total legend. She got to outlive Stanley Kubrick by 25 years, and she was happy for every second of that.
In your face.
But Stanley Kubrick would hire writers. He'd summon them to his estate in England.
The picture you have on screen is of him summoning, and
Yes.
I'm like, I'm not going over there. I need an adult.
You go. And he'd make you sit there for hours and hours and hours as he monologued. No. Or they would have conversations, but this would happen. And then he'd get sick of you and replace you with somebody else.
Like AI.
Yeah. Like
oh,
AI.
no.
But, Stanley Kubrick.
Like he squeezes them for all their interesting ideas, and then he's like, okay, bye-bye.
Squeezes them for all the ideas and then finds like, I don't want any of these. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
but he's the nightmare client that doesn't know what they want until they see all the options they don't, and then they're completely out of scope and they don't want to pay more.
Which is
Totally
makes sense if you think about the way he worked and the trajectory of his career, wherein I believe he only made 13 total movies, most of them
in the beginning,
yeah. Like in the 50s and 60s.
Right,
and
he's projecting. He can't juice anything out of himself. So he's juicing all these other guys.
He doesn't.
No, I'm right.
He knows he wants something, but he's not going to know it until he sees it.
I see. I got you.
And he starts slow, like Clockwork Orange 71, then 4 years later, Barry Lyndon, then 5 years later, The Shining, then 7 years later, Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah, it just keeps compounding.
12 years later, Eyes Wide Shut. That's the remainder of his career from 1971 on.
I didn't know about Full Metal Jacket. That's one of my movies. Mm-hmm. We need to get there.
Okay, we can do it. Okay. Stanley Kubrick, if you gun to my head, who's the best director, at least of English language movies, I would probably say Stanley Kubrick, just because he's
in the narrowest definition of what it is to be a good director. You are simply talking about what was produced on the other end. You're not thinking of the back.
How fun would it be to work for him?
No, of just like, how easy is it for him to get the same crew together again? If he makes a miracle happen, he didn't do it on his own, but those people will never work with him again. He's going to burn through the industry really fast. Mm-hmm. And I think he did.
I think people desperately wanted to work for him.
People who hadn't before.
That's true. Yeah, he didn't tend to work with the same actors, at least. I don't know. I don't know the answer to your question.
Well, that's Tom Cruise, maybe. Well, that's Tom Cruise. We can ask him.
We'll ask.
Give him a jingle.
Tom Cruise loves Stanley Kubrick. There's this great. They said, how did you react when you heard Stanley Kubrick died, or how did you feel? He goes, horrified.
That doesn't mean he loved working with him, Matt.
Okay.
He'd be like, now that motherfucker's going to haunt me.
I would say just best director in terms of, I think he's made the best. You could argue he's made the best horror movie, the best sci-fi movie, the best war movie, and the best comedy in Doctor Strangelove. So like,
wow. What would you say Eyes Wide Shut is?
The best Christmas sex thriller.
Venetian Mask thriller.
Yeah. And that might be better than all of them. So
pretty good.
That's what it would be. It would be like who
turned out the best, tightest set? He didn't spit out any junk. Maybe that's what he's brilliant at, editing. He knew what not to put out and didn't put out until he was sure. He's Tool. I'll say it.
You'll say it. He's Tool. Wow.
He's Maynard.
And he would love that comparison.
Who, Maynard?
Or
Stanley. Yeah, he's dead.
Spartacus isn't that good.
I've never seen it.
So,
okay.
All right. So that's just the thing. The thing I picked up in researching this is his habit of hiring writers to come listen to him at his estate and then firing them after a few years.
That sounds horrible.
In 1977, he went and saw Star Wars, which he didn't like, but it did get him thinking, what if I made a popular movie? The quote was, what sort of sci-fi movie could I make that would make as much money as Star Wars, yet allow me to retain my reputation for social integrity? All right. So that's like he's like, this AI, I can, that maybe that's the ticket. If I could turn this story into the movie that's in my head, even though I can't tell you what's in my head.
And at that time, they even the concept of AI that's so interesting. I just pictured that writer must have just been picturing the Jetsons, just like a boy on wheels.
I mean, like it's a very old sci-fi literary concept. Isaac Asimov's novels.
Well, how old is Westworld?
That's from the 70s. I'm saying like in the 50s there was like tons of sci-fi literature, as in
about
novels,
replacing humans with
about the ideas of artificial intelligence and the implications for humans. And
okay, sorry to keep derailing you.
That's all right.
Go on.
So every few years he would return to this idea to make the AI movie. But he'd now be like, but I wanted to explore global warming too. And can maybe this time we have sex robots? Like keeps adding on things to the basic premise. And so he would bring on different writers. One was named Ian Watson, who introduced Gigolo Joe. And he's the one who gets in the final movie, he gets screen story by Ian Watson. But in the early 90s, it develops enough momentum that Warner Brothers announces it as Stanley Kubrick's next project. So it's officially in development by the studio. And then he brings on another writer named Sarah Maitland, who was an author who wrote stories about religion and myth. And she would help give it the sort of fairy tale and mythic quality, but also really develop the relationship between David and his mother. In her version of the story, David fixes his mother Bloody Marys instead of coffee.
That makes more sense.
She didn't like Stanley Kubrick's ending where David resurrects his mother for one day. She said, like, that's not a good fairy tale. The ending that we have in the movie, that's Stanley Kubrick's going all the way back to the beginning.
Okay.
That he gets that one final day with his mom. And he also hired an artist named Chris Baker to produce thousands of storyboards and concept art pieces that Spielberg used for the movie. Okay,
so there was like a ton of source material for him to really try to make the exact vision.
Right.
What do we get to find out? What Spielberginess he put on it? Just besides the beams of light.
We will.
I can't wait.
In the 1980s, Stanley Kubrick and Steven Spielberg became friends, mostly by phone and fax.
Do we know if Stanley Kubrick has ever smiled?
I don't believe he has.
I feel like Spielberg's always smiled. They are the drama masks.
Yes. And this picture, if you there are no I could not find a photo of them together.
Okay, so that's like, what is this? Their ages don't make sense in these photos.
No, this is a Photoshop for an article.
Okay.
So this is a quote from a 2001 article from the Los Angeles Times.
Can you imagine having a friend by fax?
Yeah.
So cute.
About the making of AI and about their relationship. Said, quote, although Spielberg knew Kubrick for almost 20 years, they'd met a scant dozen times. Kubrick was afraid of flying and scarcely left his home in the English countryside. Their friendship, initiated by Spielberg when he was in England making Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1979, evolved through marathon transatlantic phone calls. It wasn't initially a two-way street, Spielberg says. It was sort of a one-way street. I'd tell Stanley everything I was doing, and Stanley would never tell me anything he was doing. Stanley was a benevolent inquisitor. He'd absolutely pump you dry of any knowledge you might have that he might find compelling. End quote. So Spielberg hero worshipped Kubrick, and to Spielberg, whose movies are very popular, but he very much wants like industry approval. He wants to win an Oscar, and he wants people to take him seriously, because it's like, yeah, you make the shark movie and the movies about the guy in the hat that are fun. They're for little kids. Stanley Kubrick makes the real shit.
The second Indiana Jones is not for little. Don't let your kids watch that.
That hadn't happened yet, but yes, you're right. So it's clear, like, Spielberg, who likes to get
What's the age difference?
Oh, good question. I think it's like 20 years.
Kubrick's older.
Yeah, 20 years older.
This picture is just very confusing to look at. It's him in his like 20s, and then and Spielberg in his 50s.
Also, Kubrick. Do you know what Kubrick's nationality is?
No.
It's American. Don't you think of him as a British person?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
I've never heard him speak.
Oh, well, he lived in England. Like, he moved to England and never came back.
He does seem grumpy.
But
is that what you're asking me?
Yes. Is he grumpy?
He looks like a grump.
So
that's so interesting for Spielberg to call him that, and that's what it feels like before he even said it. Just that you would be pumped dry after talking to him as a divorced child, child of divorce, or the people pleaser in me God, would I be drawn to that?
Yep. Spielberg was always looking for these older male figures. Had it with the Universal
That think I've got a
executives,
certain
Sidney
something.
Sheinberg and Lou Wasserman.
Even when I wasn't looking, they'd find me though.
Because
To
you don't know you're
mentor me.
looking. They can smell
I
it
just
on
have
you.
a hunger in my eyes
Yeah.
of like, approval? Is
Yeah.
approval coming? Yeah.
Spielberg, yeah, he hero worshipped him. He wanted his approval. He would send him prints of all of his movies before they came out. And then Stanley would write back and say, like, it's great. And he's like, I don't trust that he thinks it's great.
Right. Didn't even read it. TLDR.
Because like I've seen your movie, Stanley Kubrick. You don't make Spielberg movies, but Kubrick wants to make a sort of Spielberg movie, and he wants a movie that has the integrity of a Kubrick movie, but he wants a big crossover hit like he hasn't had since 2001.
Well, it must seem like a really unattainable superpower to someone like Kubrick to look at someone like Spielberg who can let go and like who can collaborate so easily and share credit and share studios and share people and not be possessive of all those things, not upset people, and pump out
Work fast.
just popular. The people get him, even if he's not critically acclaimed yet. The dense field of darkness that it must have been in Kubrick's mind, not being able to wade through all those thoughts, ending up with a great product, but like a little bit dead each time. How old was he when he died?
70.
That's fine.
But I mean, like he dropped dead of a heart attack at age 70. You're like, yeah, I mean, we could have gotten another 20 years out of Stanley Kubrick.
He was already grumpy.
Yeah. But yeah, it's such a good point to look at Spielberg. You're like, you make a movie every 1 or 2 years. I'll go to Tunisia to make this movie. You collaborate, you work for all these different studios, and you just seem to know what the public wants, and your movies are good. And you have this, everybody calls him a genius. Like he just inherently knows where to put the camera. Like he couldn't explain it to you. He just knows. So I'm sure it's also a little bit of resentment. Like
Sure.
I have to work so hard at this.
Well, and let me pump you for all of your information so that I can then go and dissect it and try to figure out what this special sauce is. Because like, I'm sure I'm so smart. I have such a high IQ, which can be just as much of a burden as it can be a help, that I'll be able to figure it out. I can like biohack this, and he never could.
Right.
And it sounds like he made him miserable.
But
and he probably just kept squeezing that he found an orange that never runs out of juice.
Right.
And ended up accidentally liking him.
And he's like, okay, you'll be my new orange. You would know how to make this AI movie. So you'll tell me how to make this movie. And then they start really talking about it for years. And apparently it's after Jurassic Park that Stanley Kubrick starts to think, maybe I should just give this movie to Steven. I'll produce it. Here's the quote. Kubrick had also called Spielberg after seeing the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. He was seemingly thrilled that Spielberg had pioneered technology which could now be used for AI. A year later, the reclusive master filmmaker called again and told Spielberg that he had something to tell him, but would only tell him in person. 2 days later, Spielberg had flown from New York and was sitting at Kubrick's kitchen table at St. Albans when Kubrick announced, "Why don't you direct AI and I'll produce it for you?" Recalls Spielberg. He said, Kubrick said, "The card will read great. It'll say a Stanley Kubrick production of a Steven Spielberg film. Don't you think people will come to see that?" End quote. So that was his idea for a while, is I'll produce it for you. And it'll be seen as our great collaboration.
Don't you get the idea that, and that's probably what's running through Steven Spielberg's head, is like, I don't know that you're going to be like George Lucas in this capacity. Like you both have the same title.
Right. Yeah. I don't
What
think
do you mean? Because you don't leave England. So
if we're on set together and you see me making a choice with the camera or whatever,
right.
Are you going to be like, hey, now, Steven, why don't we do this 70 more times?
Are you going to handle my staff and the people who I've picked for this? And that could really ruin their whatever they have.
Yeah. Spielberg in the 2001 LA Times piece said, and I don't totally believe him, he said, eventually he got cold feet. He pulled out. He was excited about the idea, but then pulled out because he thought Stanley needs to make this movie himself. It'll be a great breakthrough hit for Stanley.
No, this is coded. It's exactly what I just said. He knew I can please this guy from afar. The ocean between us is giving us a lot of help. Yep. He'll get sick of me, or he'll see the real me, the parts of me that I am a director. I make the calls. I can be subservient to you on these phone calls because I'm grateful to know you.
Yeah.
If you know me, we aren't going to be like this anymore. Our dynamic will be completely blown. I've been there, baby.
Mm-hmm. Like when?
I'm trying to think of an example, but
you don't actually have to.
Sometimes I know I'm in a relationship with somebody and I'm serving a role, and that role is not exactly to be myself. It's a piece of me. It's my thoughts. But like all of me, you don't want any of that. Like I'm serving something for you. I get that. It's no skin off my ass, so I'm allowing it. But like, you wouldn't come to my house and like leave feeling the same way.
Yeah, it's like when we go out with people and people go up to me, they're like, "How do you handle her at home? She's so crazy." Or like, I bet she's a lot of fun. And I'm like, no,
neither of those.
No, she's actually really boring and quiet.
Correct the record now.
Not quiet.
Wait, no, that's not the one. I'm a quiet worker. I am quiet.
No, but you're not fun. You're not. You're not a bag of laughs. You're serious. You're serious, and you work hard, and you have a public persona that's a mask. That's totally hiding the truth, which is that you're bitter and kind of twisted.
What the fuck, Matt?
No, you know what I mean.
I'm a worrier. I have an anxiety disorder. So, you deal with those parts of me too. I'm not always coming in and telling you like some great joke. In fact, when you and me make each other laugh, and mostly it's on this podcast, but when we make each other laugh in the wild, it's like the best part of my day. Cause it's like, man, we don't do that enough. Because it's life.
We're
it's
busy,
real.
yeah.
No. It's whatever. It's what everyone else is experiencing too. There's not the rest of the couples aren't just like only enjoying the good parts. That is why you have to be careful when you pick your mate or roommate. That's not what life is. Life isn't all the good parts.
I'm hoping we can get to a place where there's more good parts.
I think we're in the place though. I think it's just you think there's some other place that's going to be less stressful, but this is not.
Has to be.
Matt,
it has to get less stressful. It
doesn't. This is your brain doing this to you. I'm not saying we don't have stressful things in our lives, but everyone does. And I'm saying it's your obsession and your thoughts around those things and what you think is possible and like just out of reach that makes you upset and not happy.
You know how like once a year we'll go have lunch together?
Yeah.
And afterward it'll be like, that was nice. We should do that more. That's all I'm saying. Maybe we'll get to a place where that's something we can do more.
It's not all you're saying. That would mean we have less work and less money. So that would just aggravate. That would just stress
we'll have more money and less work to do.
We would just spend it. We're not good with money.
This is bad. All right, well.
You just need therapy, my love. Or read the book I read.
What book?
I don't remember the name of it. The one I read the other day. A couple weeks ago.
Steven Spielberg, a biography?
Exactly. He really puts it all into perspective.
Spielberg says he doesn't have to go to therapy because he makes movies. And I make podcasts.
It's not the fucking book I mean. I'm talking about the one, what was it called? Like, The Work.
I have to do the work?
You don't even know what it is.
All right, I'll listen.
It's actually super simple.
Okay. When Lacey reads a book.
No, that's not fair. I haven't said a word. This just happened.
I know, it's true. I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
With how little proselytizing you did this time.
I didn't put it on you or our kid because I was like, they'll laugh me out of the room. It's too easy and too stupid. They're going to be like, what are you you just have to listen to the book. Like, I can't do it justice.
And the only time I've ever read a book and been like, this is now how we live our lives, people.
Simple parenting.
No, it was Marie Kondo. It was.
Yeah. Oh God, I forgot you went to that phase.
Up.
You bought all kinds of plastic containers, and is that when you went into your packing thing where you got packing cubes and?
Yeah, packing. That's
you love packing a suitcase. Yeah. This man, he's the Kubrick of packing a suitcase.
I wish. All right, so Stanley Kubrick.
Wait, he doesn't pack his suitcase. He's a pussy who don't fly.
That's true. What an idiot. Being afraid of flying. Kubrick dies in 1999 of a heart attack. Oh,
yeah,
so
he does.
He instead of doing AI, he moved on, did Eyes Wide Shut. But he has all this material. He has 1 billion aborted scripts and script treatments and these thousands of pieces of art, of concept art and storyboards.
Okay.
And Spielberg is planning Minority Report with Tom Cruise, but then Tom Cruise is like, and when they're planning these movies, these are for like years ahead of time. Like, okay, so in 2000, I'll be working on this, and you're like planning this in 96 or 7 or something. So
sure.
So
you got to get funding. There's got to get it takes forever.
So Cruise is like, okay, we've had a little delay in Mission Impossible 2, which means I'm not going to be able to start Minority Report until 2001. So Spielberg's like, okay, so my 2000 is free. What am I going to do then? Why don't I go visit Stanley Kubrick's archives and I'll make AI. And he said he saw it as a message from God, or not a message. He saw it as a sign from the movie gods that Tom Cruise, who had just worked on Kubrick's last movie, now has to postpone their collaboration. So he's like, okay, well, I'll go work with.
I mean, if God is Kubrick, then yes.
Yes.
Matt, why? God, Matt is lying when he says he does not want me to react to things on the screen. Because in the video version of this podcast, do you show these? You don't,
when
right?
you react, I do.
I don't believe you.
Yes, I do.
Because when I watch
you
the video,
don't watch?
sometimes, well, I listen. That's how it's intended.
You gotta watch.
I do not.
All right, what's your complaint?
Just don't take it off the screen.
Okay, but what picture are you looking at?
Poor little Haley Joe. You just put up a picture of David as he's trying to be like Henry, and he's eating when he's not supposed to. He's not that kind of robot, and his face melts, which is my only little pick on the movie and its technology rendering. When we first see an AI, a mecha, and it's the pretty lady, and the hobby is teaching his whatever he's doing. He's giving a speech introducing the idea of baby bots, and her whole face, the seamlessness of the face going back in. Just, you don't need to just take the face off. You just can make the mechanism in the back, so you don't need perfectly flawless face to match back up again. The idea of like the skin of AI is what's the most unbelievable of this movie. You're welcome.
Okay.
You got it wrong.
So it's not like the
faces don't
CGI
melt.
looks bad. It's
not that.
don't
No,
believe
CGI
it.
actually is pretty good. I'm buying the whole. It looks really real. It's just that's not. You wouldn't make the skin out of that. It'd tear too easy. You're just not going to treat a robot person with the same gingerness you treat a real person. You know you're going to take David and like throw him in the back of the car sometimes, or just like grab his arm. That skin's not going to be that delicate. You're gonna be ripping the skin all the time. That's disgusting. Needs to be made of good polymer. You know what I mean?
I guess they're like, but why would he ever eat? We tell him not to eat.
I'm just saying.
One great flaw is he can't eat, or else the skin falls off.
That's not my point's not about the eating. It's about the way that these robots, their skin works. Especially the sex robots. You're gonna be all crazy with the sex robots. You're gonna be ripping labias left and right. That shit's got to be made out of rubber, baby. No? Okay.
Yeah.
You can put it back on. Why do you need can't you just go to the next slide? I don't want to look at email. That's not gonna help.
First, there was a conversation with Stan Winston about maybe we could just make an actual animatronic that will be David the whole movie.
Oh my.
But they don't do that. Instead, they go to Haley Joel Osment, who's coming right off The Sixth Sense. They used tricks like lighting and makeup, and they would shave all the fuzz off of his skin to give him this otherworldly look. And Haley Joel Osment and his stage dad came up with the idea that he would never blink.
It was a great shortcut to adding something you can't really put your finger on, that uncanny thing you need. The face fuzz, though, the peach, just that everyone has that little layer of hair no matter how old you are. Mm-hmm. That's because it'll catch the light. You can't stop it from doing that. And they must have done it to Jude Law, too, because there is something so... And the thought to give him eyeshadow and many... Like just straight up sparkly... Men wear makeup now. Mm-hmm. If they're a gigolo, is so interesting. But like their ideas about women and how you would treat them in the future are just very much of that time. Like, he's sexual toward the robot, Professor Hobby. They're openly talking about having sex with women robots in a very sexist way in that whole talk. He tells her to get up and get undressed, and the whole class laughs, even though there's women in the class too. Yeah. And then the idea that it's a housewife, of course, why would Monica have anything to do? She's it's the future and everything's amazing, but she still just does laundry all day. Yeah. So that was, and just that Rouge City and the place where they are before, that's like a mini Rouge City, is just for sex.
Yeah, the Monica thing, I think, like, if you think this script basically was written in the 70s, like, you couldn't conceive of the idea that, Yeah, you feel the oldness. It feels very Tomorrowland. There is a mixture of, because they did so great with the futurism,
you can't help but feel all the little old stuff that sneaks in.
Not that there aren't women who stay home and do laundry.
Yeah, of course. But like at the highest, I don't know.
And I've always kind of read it as like maybe she used to work and now she's just depressed.
Sure.
And doesn't even remember not staying at home and doing laundry.
So then what's the difference? I think it's just the limitations of Steven Spielberg's imagination. And I wouldn't put it on him except for that he does the same thing in Minority Report.
We don't know that she doesn't work.
She's staying at home to have sex with her boyfriend and she's home all the time.
Who?
Oh, no, she's a real estate agent. The person that cheats and the husband in the very beginning, the person that he stops. She's
And
a real
Minority
estate
Report,
agent. Yeah. But it doesn't read like that. She's just in her pajamas and like doing stuff for the kids and he's off to work. And he's like, maybe I'll stay home for work. And she's like, because you get the sense she's home often. She just runs in and out to like show off her little silly houses.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Based on some more pop psychology of Spielberg, it's clear when he married his first wife, Amy Irving, and then with Kate Capshaw, like they were both actresses. Amy Irving, a very successful and Oscar-nominated actress, and he really struggled with that. Kate Capshaw, when they got together, is kind of like, well, now I'm retired. My profession is Steven Spielberg's wife. And like, maybe he just needs the wife to be at home. And
then the ex-wife of the main character in Minority Report, there's no hint of a career. You don't know that, but every time he needs her, she's around and she's at a house.
Yeah.
So
he also just doesn't have many female protagonists.
I think he just, you kind of hit it on the head when you said that there's just not many sexy parts of his movies. He seems kind of asexual. And I mean, there's no doubt that it wasn't, that it was Harrison Ford and Miriam that came up with something so cute and kind of sexy. There's no way Steven Spielberg came up with the lines they deliver in Indiana Jones
or Lawrence
Raiders.
Kasdan, the screenwriter, might have.
Exactly. Right. And I think he just doesn't write what he doesn't know. And I don't think he knows what to do with a girl.
Which is why he was criticized in The Color Purple for kind of taking out a lot of the lesbian elements in the lesbian sex scene, and he like openly said like, yeah, I'm just very shy.
Yeah, his kids are gonna watch this, or like his mom or something. I mean, he seems kind of kid-like, but that's also going to limit him as a kid, as a child boy. You don't understand women yet and realize they're fully formed and aren't just part of your story. The way he would use his sisters just to be part of what he was doing, not really caring that they held on to the things he did to them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. Okay, just a few more things. One about Haley Joel Osment, the way he was directed by Spielberg, and we've talked about Spielberg directing
move like this, now, like stop motion, and move your arm like this. Now do that.
Talked about how good he is with kids. With the E.T. episode, you pointed out, I know he just gets down at their level and he knows how to communicate with them. Haley Joel Osment talks about how he never condescends to you. This is from a 2021 article from The Ringer, which interviewed Haley Joel Osment about making this movie. Said, quote, "It was all about where you're coming from, where you are in the story, the way he manages his set. There's hundreds of people there, but when you're doing certain scenes, it feels very intimate. It just feels so in the moment, and you feel that on set too. That helps you as a kid when your imagination is particularly alive to just feel like you're in it." End quote. So like, this is just another one of the great child performances in a Spielberg movie.
It's very good.
Where he's in almost every shot of the movie. Stan Winston they didn't end up doing an animatronic for David, but they did for Teddy. Said this animatronic is way more complex than the T-Rex on Jurassic Park.
It was really walking?
Most of the time, but for certain sequences it's CGI, but it's almost always.
And it looked heavy. Time anyone went to pick it up and like get it out of here, it looked heavy.
They said this in the Ringer piece, quote, "Teddy's design was intentionally something that looked kind of old and you had a good feeling as soon as you saw him. But you still had the sort of curmudgeon-y voice. The only direction veteran voice actor Jack Angel received for Teddy was, we want a voice like Eeyore, but not stupid."
Tired, but wise.
And they had this Jack Angel, the voice actor for Teddy, had recorded everything before production, but still Spielberg wanted him on set. So they paid him to just be there on set so that he could interact with Haley Joel Osment and they could ad lib with each other.
Oh, that's smart.
And the movie came out in 2001. It It made $236 million worldwide on a budget of $100 million. A bigger hit than I thought it was.
Another Stanley Kubrick omen, right? His biggest sci-fi movie, and it airs as a tribute to him on the name of his biggest sci-fi movie.
That's true, yeah.
The 2001: A Space Odyssey.
LA Times article I read mentioned that fact. Like, it is 2001, but we're not exactly in the...
And it's not 1984. Right. Other movie reference.
Right.
Okay,
so that's the basically the history of this movie. And now we shall talk. We already talked about the movie itself.